First contact. High Commander Scythera stood at the observation deck of the galactic research vessel Eternal Seeker, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the pale light of frozen world KX-427. The planet below was considered uninhabitable by most spacefaring races. Average surface temperature of -70 degrees Celsius, constant Category 3 ice storms, and gravity 1.3 times galactic standard. Yet their sensors had detected artificial structures and energy signatures. "Impossible," muttered Science Officer R.A.D, his sensor stalks twitching in agitation. No carbon-based life form could survive those conditions without full environmental containment. Yet these readings suggest outdoor activity. Scythera's mandibles clicked in agreement. Their species had evolved on a temperate world, developing crystalline exoskeletons that could withstand extreme conditions. But these readings suggested something entirely different. Deploy the observation drones. Maximum stealth protocols. The holographic displays came alive as the drones transmitted their first images. What they revealed caused a wave of shocked chirping to sweep through the bridge crew. Humans, dozens of them, but unlike any they'd encountered before. These humans were launching themselves off impossibly high cliffs, riding primitive devices down near vertical ice faces, performing aerial maneuvers that seemed to defy both physics and sanity. Their protective gear appeared minimal, certainly nothing like the full environmental suits that would be required by galactic safety standards. By the first crystal, R.A.D whispered, "Are they suicidal? Those speeds, those heights, one mistake would mean instant death." But death didn't come. Instead, they watched as human after human executed perfect landings, their primitive boards and skids throwing up plumes of ice crystals. Some even performed what appeared to be deliberate aerial rotations before landing. "Magnify that structure at coordinates 227 Mark IV, Scythera ordered. The image shifted to reveal what appeared to be a base camp. Unlike the sterile, environmentally sealed structures they were familiar with, this one pulsed with life and energy. Humans moved in and out freely, some carrying equipment, others gathered around heating units, sharing what appeared to be nutrition packets. A particular group caught her attention. They wore distinctive jackets marked with R.A.D Riders in bold letters. Unlike the others, they moved with a particular purpose, checking equipment with methodical precision that belied their seemingly reckless activities. "Commander," the communications officer interrupted, "we're picking up their transmissions. They're calling this practice." Practice. The word hung in the air like a challenge. These humans weren't just surviving in conditions that would kill most species. They were deliberately seeking out the most dangerous aspects of this frozen hell for entertainment. Scythera made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. Prepare the diplomatic shuttle. It's time we understood exactly what we're dealing with. As the shuttle descended through the swirling snow, none of the crew could have predicted how this encounter would reshape their understanding of humanity. The creatures they dismissed as soft-skinned and fragile were about to demonstrate why they'd become one of the most successful species in the galaxy. The R.A.D Riders looked up as the alien shuttle broke through the cloud cover, their reactions surprising the observers above. Instead of fear or panic, their biosignatures showed elevated levels of excitement. "Dude," one of them said, adjusting his goggles, "think they're here for the extreme games." Commander Scythera would soon learn that in human vocabulary, extreme had a very different meaning than she'd ever imagined. The shuttle touched down on a designated landing pad. The humans had actually anticipated and prepared for off-world visitors, and as the hatch opened, letting in a blast of frigid air, Scythera realized this was no longer a simple observation mission. They were about to learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable species. A human female approached the shuttle, her breath visible in the freezing air. The lack of proper environmental protection made Scythera's crystalline structure vibrate with anxiety. The human was wearing what appeared to be simple insulated fabric and transparent eye protection. She smiled, a gesture Scythera had learned meant either friendship or imminent violence in human culture, and spoke. "Welcome to Thunder Peak, home of the R.A.D Riders. I'm Sarah Chen, Director of Interstellar Relations. Would you like to see what humans do for fun?" Breaking the ice. The observation room in Thunder Peak's main lodge defied everything Scythera knew about human architecture. Instead of the sterile, climate-controlled environments she'd encountered on diplomatic missions, this space embraced the planet's harsh nature. Massive windows looked out over the frozen landscape, and the heating units were set to what her environmental suit registered as barely tolerable for human life. Sarah Chen, the human liaison, noticed her attention on the temperature readout. "We keep it cool in here," she explained, sipping from a steaming cup of what she'd called hot chocolate. "Helps us stay acclimated to the outside conditions. Plus, the R.A.D Riders tend to run hot after their runs." As if on cue, a group of humans burst through the door, their faces flushed with what Scythera's xenobiology training identified as elevated blood flow to surface capillaries. They were laughing, a sound that still made her crystalline structure vibrate uncomfortably. "You should have seen that triple cork," one of them exclaimed, pulling off his protective headgear. Mason nearly clipped the ice shelf, but he stuck the landing. Science Officer Arxtal's sensor stalks twitched rapidly. "Excuse me," he interrupted, "but our scans showed that maneuver had a 73.4% chance of resulting in fatal injury. How did you calculate the risk-reward ratio to justify such an attempt?" The humans exchanged glances before bursting into more laughter. One of them, a tall male with dark skin and intricate patterns shaved into his hair, stepped forward. "I'm Mason Williams, and honestly, sometimes you just have to send it." "Send? What?" Scythera asked, her universal translator struggling with the idiom. "He means sometimes you have to push past the calculations and trust your instincts," Sarah explained. "The R.A.D Riders are part of a long human tradition of pushing boundaries. We call it extreme sports, but it's really about understanding our limits by going beyond them." Arxtal's crystalline structure took on the deep blue coloration that indicated severe distress. That's completely illogical. How can you understand limits by exceeding them? The moment you exceed a limit, by definition, you've failed." Mason grinned, pulling up a holographic display of his latest run. "Watch this," he said, freezing the image at the moment he began the triple cork. "See how my body position here seems completely wrong. By conventional physics, I should have wiped out. But humans have something that goes beyond conventional physics: adaptation. Every time we try something new, our bodies and minds learn. We're not just testing limits, we're expanding them." Scythera watched the footage, her scientific mind wrestling with what she was seeing. The human body seemed to defy several fundamental principles of momentum and gravity, yet the evidence was undeniable. "But the risk," she insisted. "Your species has achieved interstellar travel. You have colonies on hundreds of worlds. Why continue to engage in activities that could end your existence?" Sarah's expression became thoughtful. "Commander, did you know that many of our space exploration technologies came from extreme sports? The thermal regulation systems in our spacesuits, developed for high-altitude climbing, impact absorption technology, skateboarding, and BMX. When humans push limits in one area, the benefits spread everywhere." As if to punctuate her point, an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. The humans' relaxed demeanor instantly shifted to focused alertness. "We've got a situation," a voice announced over the intercom. "3 climbers trapped on the north face. Storm moving in fast. Category 4 ice storm, ETA 20 minutes. The R.A.D Riders were moving before the announcement finished, grabbing equipment with practiced efficiency. Mason turned to the alien visitors, his expression serious but eyes bright with what Scythera was learning to recognize as anticipation. "Want to see how humans handle impossible situations?" he asked. "Because we're about to attempt a rescue that your physics says can't be done." Scythera looked at Arxtal, both of their crystalline structures pulsing with uncertainty. Their environmental suits could theoretically withstand the storm conditions, but to deliberately go out into such chaos. Sarah was already pulling on her gear. "You can observe from here," she offered, "but this is what R.A.D really stands for. Risk and determination, yes, but also rescue and deliverance. We push limits not just for ourselves, but for others." As the humans prepared for their impossible rescue, Scythera realized she was about to witness either a testament to human capability or a tragedy in the making. Either way, she suspected her report to the Galactic Council would need significant revision. The storm. The observation room's windows rattled as the Category 4 ice storm slammed into Thunder Peak. Scythera's environmental suit sensors were screaming warnings about the external conditions: wind speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour, temperature dropping to -90 degrees Celsius, visibility near zero. Yet the R.A.D Riders moved with purpose through the maelstrom. Their communication channels crackled with steady, focused exchanges that seemed at odds with their earlier casual behavior. Team 1 in position. Mason's voice came through clear despite the howling wind. "Sarah, what's your read on the ice shelf?" Sarah's drum feed showed a massive wall of ice, nearly vertical, with 3 small figures huddled in a shallow cave halfway up. "Structures unstable. That last seismic event cracked the primary support. We've got maybe 15 minutes before the whole thing comes down." Arxtal's sensor stalks were vibrating so rapidly they threatened to short out. "This is madness. The physics are clear. Any attempt to reach those climbers will result in the death of both rescuers and victims. The wind shear alone." "With respect, officer," interrupted a new voice. A human female with gray-streaked hair stepped into the observation room, her movements suggesting military training. "Physics is just one part of the equation. I'm Dr. Elena Rodriguez, head of R.A.D Research and Development. What you're about to see is the result of 3 generations of human innovation." She pulled up a holographic display showing the R.A.D Riders' equipment, the suits they're wearing. Reactive smart fabric that stiffens on impact but remains flexible for movement. The boards. Quantum edge technology that reads and adapts to terrain variations in microseconds. But the real innovation isn't the tech, it's the humans using it. Outside, Mason and his team had begun their ascent. Instead of fighting the hurricane-force winds, they were using them, their boards catching the updrafts to practically surf up the ice wall. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans executed maneuvers that their scientific models said were impossible. Second crack forming. Sarah's voice cut through the comm. "Mason, you've got incoming ice sheet, 2 o'clock. A massive sheet of ice, larger than a shuttlecraft, broke free above the rescue team." Scythera's crystalline structure pulsed with horror. At these temperatures, impact with ice was like hitting concrete. But Mason didn't retreat. Instead, he accelerated toward the falling ice. "Is he attempting suicide?" Arxtal chirped in alarm. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "Watch." Mason hit a natural ramp in the ice wall, launching himself toward the falling sheet. At the last possible moment, he triggered something on his board. A concentrated sonic pulse shot out, shattering the ice sheet into powder just as he passed through it. The powder snow created a momentary shield from the wind, giving the rest of his team the opening they needed. "That's impossible," Arxtal whispered. "The timing required, the precision. Humans call it flow state," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "When we're under extreme pressure, our consciousness shifts. Time seems to slow down. We become capable of calculations and reactions that even our best computers can't match. We don't defy physics, we dance with it." The rescue operation continued like a choreographed performance. The R.A.D Riders worked in perfect synchronization, using the storm itself as a tool. When a wind gust threatened to throw them off the ice wall, they turned it into momentum. When ice chunks fell, they became temporary shields or launching platforms. In exactly 12 minutes, all 3 stranded climbers were secured and being guided down the ice wall through channels the rescue team had created in the ice. Not a single injury, Not a single mistake. As the rescued climbers were brought into the medical bay, Scythera noticed something remarkable. Despite having just executed an impossible rescue in lethal conditions, the R.A.D Riders were already discussing how to improve their technique. "Next time, we should try the sonic pulse at a higher frequency," Mason was saying, reviewing the footage. "Might get a better powder consistency for wind blocking." Sarah nodded, making notes. And the quantum edges needed an extra millisecond to adapt to that last ice formation. "I'll have the tech team adjust the predictive algorithms." Scythera turned to Dr. Rodriguez. "They're treating this like a training exercise, not a near-death experience." "That's the secret you're missing about humans," Rodriguez replied. "We don't excel despite danger. We excel because of it. Every crisis is an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to improve. The R.A.D Riders aren't just extreme athletes or rescue workers. They're the cutting edge of human evolution, pushing the boundaries of what's possible so that those boundaries keep moving." Trial by fire. The storm had passed, leaving Thunder Peak encased in a new layer of crystalline ice that reminded Scythera of her home world. She stood in the facility's main hall, her crystalline form reflecting the morning light, as she addressed the assembled R.A.D Riders. "Your rescue operation has challenged many of our assumptions about human capabilities," she began. "The Galactic Council will be interested in my report. However, my science officer has raised a valid point. Perhaps this was merely a product of specialized technology and favorable conditions." Mason stepped forward, a slight smile playing at his lips. "You think we just got lucky?" "Not exactly," Arxtall interjected, his sensor stalks pulsing with scientific curiosity. "But we wonder if your abilities would translate to challenges outside your specialized environment. Our species has its own trials, tests that every crystalline being must pass to prove their worth. Would you be willing to attempt them?" The room fell silent. Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Rodriguez, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "What kind of trials are we talking about?" Scythera's crystalline structure shifted to project a holographic image. 3 trials, traditionally completed without technological assistance. First, the resonance chamber, designed to test one's ability to maintain structural integrity under intense vibrational stress. Second, the prismatic maze, a test of adaptation to rapidly changing environmental conditions. Finally, the crystal forge, a challenge of precision and control in an environment of extreme pressure and temperature variation. "Hold up," Mason interjected. "You're saying these trials were designed for beings with crystalline bodies, and you want us squishy humans to attempt them?" "Precisely," Arxtall confirmed. "By your own standards of risk assessment, the probability of success would be minimal." The R.A.D Riders didn't look discouraged. If anything, they seemed energized by the challenge. Sarah stepped forward. "What are the stakes?" "If you succeed," Scythera announced, "the Galactic Council will formally recognize human extreme sports as a legitimate form of scientific advancement and cultural expression. No more attempts to regulate or restrict your activities in Council space. And if we fail, then you accept Council oversight and safety protocols for all human sporting activities in extraterrestrial environments." The humans huddled together, discussing in low voices. After a few minutes, Mason turned back to the aliens. "We accept with one condition. We do this as a team. Different people for different trials, playing to our strengths." Scythera's crystalline structure pulsed with surprise. "The trials are traditionally undertaken by a single individual." "Yeah, well, humans are traditionally terrible at following traditions," Dr. Rodriguez commented with a smile. "Besides, you'll learn more about us this way. Each person brings their own skills, their own way of approaching problems." After conferring with her team, Scythera agreed. The trials would begin at sunset in a specially prepared chamber aboard the Eternal Seeker. The resonance chamber was first. The human chosen to attempt it was Kai Chen, Sarah's younger brother, a specialist in underground ice climbing. He entered the chamber wearing only basic protective gear, no advanced tech, as agreed. The vibrations will increase in intensity and complexity, R.A.D explained. For our people, the challenge is maintaining our crystalline structure. For a human, he trailed off, uncertain what would happen. The chamber activated. Waves of resonant energy pulsed through the space, starting at subsonic frequencies and rapidly climbing. Kai didn't try to resist the vibrations. Instead, he began to move with them, his body flowing like water. The aliens watched in amazement as he turned the potentially destructive energy into a kind of dance. He's using something called dynamic absorption, Dr. Rodriguez explained. It's a technique ice climbers use to handle seismic events. The body becomes a shock absorber, dispersing energy rather than resisting it. When the chamber reached frequencies that would shatter normal crystalline structures, Kai was still moving, his movements becoming more intricate, but never losing control. He completed the trial with a flourish, ending in a handstand, just as the final pulse faded. One down, he grinned, walking out on slightly shaky legs. Who's up for the prismatic maze? The aliens' confidence in their trial's difficulty was beginning to waver. But as they prepared for the second challenge, none of them could have predicted just how thoroughly these humans would redefine the meaning of impossible. Evolution's children. The prismatic maze loomed before them, its crystalline walls shifting and refracting light in patterns that could disorient even the most seasoned crystalline beings. For this trial, the R.A.D Riders had chosen Maya Patel, their youngest member and a specialist in what humans called free running. The maze reconfigures itself constantly, R.A.D explained, his sensor stalks twitching with barely contained scientific curiosity. The patterns of light and crystal create an ever-changing labyrinth. Our people use their natural resonance to navigate, but without a crystalline structure. Maya was already stretching, her movements fluid and precise. So basically, it's like running a course that keeps changing. Sounds like a Tuesday at Thunder Peak. The maze activated. The walls began to shift, creating corridors that appeared and disappeared in seconds. Light bounced between surfaces in complex patterns, making it nearly impossible to distinguish solid walls from optical illusions. Maya took a deep breath and entered. What followed left even the most seasoned crystalline observers speechless. Where they expected careful navigation, Maya moved like water through the maze's changing patterns. She didn't try to predict the changes. She reacted to them in real time, using the very obstacles meant to stop her as launching points and handholds. Impossible, one of the alien observers whispered. Her neural processing speed would need to be off the charts. Dr. Rodriguez finished. That's what happens when humans enter what we call the zone. Our conscious mind steps back, and something more primitive and powerful takes over. Something that evolved dodging predators and hunting prey across ever-changing terrain. Maya emerged from the other side of the maze in record time, not just completing the trial but setting a new standard. The aliens' crystalline structures pulsed with colors that suggested both amazement and concern. But it was the final trial, the Crystal Forge, that would truly test the limits of human adaptation. This challenge had been designed to test a crystalline being's ability to maintain form under extreme pressure and temperature variations. For a human to attempt it seemed beyond reckless. Mason stepped forward for this final test. Before we start, he said, I want to show you something. He pulled up a holographic display showing various human sporting events throughout history. Free climbing, wingsuit flying, deep-sea diving without equipment. Humans have always pushed into environments we weren't designed for. It's not about defying nature. It's about understanding it so completely that we become part of it. The Crystal Forge activated. The chamber filled with rapidly shifting zones of extreme heat and cold, pressure waves that could crush standard spacecraft hulls, and crystalline formations that grew and shattered in chaotic patterns. Mason entered wearing only basic thermal protection. What followed wasn't just a test completion. It was a demonstration of everything the R.A.D Riders had been trying to teach their alien observers. Mason didn't fight against the extreme conditions. He worked with them. He used pressure waves to move through the chamber, temperature differentials to create paths where none existed, and the growing crystal formations as temporary shields. You see, Dr. Rodriguez explained as they watched, humans didn't evolve to be the strongest, fastest, or most durable species on our planet. We evolved to adapt. Every environment, every challenge, becomes a new opportunity to learn and grow. The R.A.D Riders aren't acting against their nature. They're expressing the very essence of what makes us human. When Mason emerged from the Crystal Forge, success wasn't measured just in completion, but in the profound shift in understanding it represented. Scythera's crystalline structure pulsed with colors that her species used to indicate deep revelation. "We came here to study what we thought was an aberration," she announced to the assembled humans and aliens. "Instead, we have witnessed the next stage of human evolution in action. The Galactic Council's reports will need significant revision. You don't need oversight or protection. You need recognition for what you truly are, pioneers of human potential." Sarah stepped forward, extending her hand in the human gesture of agreement. "So, does this mean we can finally build that extreme sports complex in the Centauri system?" Scythera's structure shifted to approximate a human smile as she extended her crystalline appendage to meet Sarah's hand. "I believe the Council will be very interested in seeing what other impossible feats humans can achieve, though perhaps we should establish some cultural exchange programs first. I find myself curious about what you call snowboarding." The R.A.D Riders exchanged grins. They had not only won their freedom to pursue their passion across the galaxy, they had gained new students eager to understand the human art of dancing with danger. As the sun set over Thunder Peak, casting the ice world in brilliant colors, humans and aliens gathered in the lodge to share stories and plan future adventures. The galaxy, they all realized, was about to become a much more interesting place. After all, when humans decide something is possible, even the laws of physics learn to adapt.